And we're live, yes. For everybody who is wondering about the lack of audio, that is intentional. It's just so you guys can watch us right before we start the stream. And just in case anything needs to be attended to prior to the stream starting, we can get that done without having to excuse our absences. So welcome to B-Roll. Here we are. Byron, Brett, back for another show. What do we have on the docket today, Byron?
Well, we're going to be speaking about the new Nvidia cards.
Okay, cool.
1050 and the 1080 Ti.
Okay, and then we also have something about esports at Rage coming up.
Esports at Rage, South African event, gaming expo.
Isn't it like the largest gaming expo in the Southern Hemisphere?
Games and technology, yeah.
Okay. Battlefield 1, Telecom pulling the rug out from under LTE users.
Him being one, not me, thankfully.
Netflix, excuse me, oh heavens. I got another one. Netflix creates a video encoding benchmark program. Oculus touch controllers are listed for sale, and
the newest GoPro drone.
As well as the Hero 5 and Hero 5 Session.
Yes, but I think the main thing that's different now is the drone. I mean, we've seen enough GoPros.
Okay.
Cool, so how was your last week?
Hectic.
Why?
Tons of videos going on. We did that milkshake PC, which was disgusting to say the least.
Super gross.
The milkshakes were good. The milkshake that came out of the PC was disgusting. We got your new PC built. We made a video out of that.
That was very cool.
I broke a motherboard, which happened last week, I think.
After Tuesday, yeah.
No, I think. Anyways, regardless, got that replaced. Now I'm back on benchmarking. Have like tons of videos to do. How about you?
Pretty lazy week, to be honest.
Thanks.
Been pushing out more content on the Game Arena website, and yeah, just trying to figure out what's next in store for myself and for
kids,
for Game Arena. For what? No, hell no. Kids are not in store for me. I need to learn too. Cool. Okay. So let's get at it. So
first topic. Let's pull it up in the chat as well as you pull it up on the stream. It's very basic. The 1050 that we talked about on our first show about 2 weeks ago is rumored to launch in mid to late October, depending on the source that you read. The OC3D article says late October. I've read, I think WCCF Tech also said mid-October. So just looks like a very condensed graphics card release season. So 1050 is coming out, and then the 1080 Ti, which is our next topic, because we don't really need to talk more about the 1050.
That's true. We're not really interested in the 1050, to be honest.
I disagree.
You're not interested?
What? No, I am interested in the 1050.
I'm not so interested in it, to be honest.
I definitely see. Like, I want to know what the lower end cards are. Like, what can I get by with if a 1050 is going to suit my needs at the $120 price point? My needs being like basic 1080p gaming for Rocket League with my children.
I suppose.
Like, if the 1050 can meet that, I don't know.
My concern is like the other end of it, where AAA titles are not even running perfectly on a 1063 gig at 1080. So I'm kind of like at the stage where it's like the new games that are coming out, we'll actually speak about something like that later, having higher system requirements.
Your water being right there is making me nervous.
No worries. Yeah, so look, let's speak about the 1080 Ti a little bit. So what is it? It's basically the new Pascal chip released by Nvidia. Has 3,328 CUDA cores.
Which is 256 less than the Titan XP, which isn't a whole lot less. Like, that's basically from the 980 Ti down to the 1080.
It's not even 10%. Yeah. It's not even 10%. But if you look at the difference between the 1080 versus the 1080 Ti, that's quite a big leap. I mean, that just trying to like work it off the top of my head, that's kind of like a 30% increase in CUDA cores.
Right. So well, this is basically what happened with the 980 Ti. It was just a drop down Titan X that like was available for the consumer and it like beat the Titan X once you overclocked it.
And in terms of memory, it's running GDDR5. Do you think that the reason they're not running X is for price?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily price. I just
because the 1080 normal has X, and now so you're going from normal GDDR5 1070, GDDR5X on 1080, normal GDDR5 on 1080 Ti.
Right, but that doesn't matter so much in terms of performance because you take the amount of megahertz it's running by with the total bandwidth of the bit rate of the memory bus, and that's your like effective throughput of memory.
That's
and the effective throughput of the 1080 Ti is 384 gigabytes, which is 64 gigabytes per second, more than the GTX 1060, and like 96 less than the Titan XP, which I mean, I don't think anybody needs the memory throughput of the Titan XP for a consumer application. And at the same time, like if the GDDR5 is going to be performing better than the GDDR5X on the 1080, what's
Why even?
honestly the point? It's just kind of a marketing thing.
That's true. But like, what's the price point at this stage? Is there actually any
Uh,
initial price point that's being released?
Was there? I didn't see one.
Let me actually just double check quickly.
GTX 1080 Ti price. Probably.
I'm thinking like $800 somewhere there.
800, 900 is what I've heard,
Probably.
which is like ridiculous because like that's what we're paying for the Titan.
Titan 4, that was 999, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. So, what do you think about the card in terms of like its importance in this series? Because if I look at the 9 series,
Yeah.
or even the 7 series, sorry, the 780 Ti
Mhm.
was kind of like the best card in its range, and there was also the Titan and Titan Black.
Right.
And then if you look at the 9 series, even though the Titan X was realistically kind of, let's say, better than the 980 Ti,
Mhm.
it was kind of like, boxing like evenly in most games at a way cheaper price point.
Well, that's basically what the Ti is. It's the Pascal available for gaming. At least that's exactly what it used to be. I'm not sure.
But the memory amount this time is the same. That wasn't the same before because with the
Well, what was it a difference? So the Titan X had 12 gigabytes of
Yes.
VRAM, and the 980 Ti had
6.
Whereas now they're both even, and the
Yeah.
only difference is the X versus non-X.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of curious to know what's going on there because that was one of the things where everyone was saying in like a practical use scenario of the Titan X, ridiculous resolutions because of the RAM buffer size or whatever. Whereas in this case, it's the same.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think that I don't think the 980 Ti or the 1080 Ti becomes less relevant because of this. I think the Titan's just becoming less
No,
relevant.
I agree. I agree completely.
I think that's all this is pushing the Titan out of consumer range and into just the elite category. Same with
If you
like
got
the
more
Intel
money to
XP.
spend than you
Same with
care.
like the Intel 6950X. It's like you can get a 6900K, but then you have the 6950X, which makes no financial practical sense, but is literally better than everything else.
That's true, but I think in this scenario it's a little bit of like there's more difference in those where Intel's kind of like they've got the extreme end, but
Yeah.
it's way more extreme than the normal.
That's
If
true.
you understand what I mean. I
More
mean it's
core,
like
yeah.
you're going like 18 cores, 36 threads kind of things versus a normal, let's say i5 4-core, 4 threads.
Right.
Whereas this it's like 10% difference. I mean 10% difference at 50% of the cost like extra,
Yeah.
roughly. I mean I don't know. I think the Titan X, Titan XP, whatever you want to call it, was more of just like a marketing thing. Nvidia's basically showing, hey, we got the best.
Which
Spend your money.
it didn't even make sense when they released it or why they released it, and like there's no given release date on the 1080 Ti. Vega's supposed to launch early January, I think, or early next year, first quarter. I really don't know what's going on with this release cycle. It's kind of frustrating.
Everything is confusing. And I mean, especially where it's like previous generations from both manufacturers would either start at the, let's say, medium end, then go to the high, and then low. Otherwise, they'd start at the high, then medium, then low in terms of the release schedule.
Right.
This time around, it's just like, oh, we've got to release these cards, so lucky draw.
AMD's release has made sense for the most part.
Yes.
It was like the 480, then the 470, then the 460. Hey, we have all of our giant GPUs coming out next year.
I agree, but like Nvidia's kind of just messing us around. I mean, now with the notebook series of them having the
Right.
same names as well, it's like which card are we even speaking about? Which one's coming out when? Because like, especially now with the 1050, I think we discussed this last week. That's probably going to be a mobile chip, like straight away.
Right.
So I don't know. Like, do you actually? That's something I've just thought about now. Do you think that this is going to be a mobile chip?
The 1080 Ti.
Yeah, because what's its TDP at this stage?
It doesn't even say. It's
Actually,
one. It's
let me
one
just double
8-pin,
check.
one 6-pin. So
250 watts. I don't think that's going to be in a notebook. I see it in like one of those MSI Vortexes or something like that.
But well, if you look at the TDP on the notebook SKUs for the 10 series or even the 980 mobile, it was less by like I think like 30 or 40 watts. So dropping that down to 200 watts, you can put that in the MSI Titan or the ROG GX700, GX800. I think there's sufficient battery banks to handle it. You're not getting SLI, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
You basically need an SFX power brick to bring with you.
You see, the thing is like, I don't know, opinion, in terms of all the notebooks that have had SLI and that kind of thing, or let's say the most extreme end,
Right.
most of them have had SLI as an option anyway. And I don't think they're going to go and release one that has, let's say, a 1080 Ti mobile or 1080 SLI, because I kind of see it as a
The
situation where
1080 SLI would be higher skew than the
yeah,
1080 Ti.
but so like, but then it's kind of like one of those like marketing confusions where people are like, oh, but I want the TI version.
Yeah.
I don't see 500 watts out of just two GPUs inside of a mobile solution without a massive difference in terms of like the actual spec.
Right.
I don't know. Look,
It's possible.
the fact that we already have a 1080 in notebooks is mental.
Right.
So it's possible. I don't really think that's something that'll happen. I mean, especially if you look at it like this. So 1080.
Hold on. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Would you want a 1080 Ti in a notebook?
Or no, two.
Two. Would you want?
That's the thing.
Well, one or two, because even one 250 watt TDP, you're carrying around a giant power brick.
Probably an additional. So
Right.
this system plus.
Yeah, I think in a vortex, like in the trash can style thing, that totally makes sense. Like it's not portable. You're not meant to be toting it around. You can have a huge power brick for that thing.
For sure.
It's not a problem.
You can have three. I mean, it doesn't really matter. They could have some form of a splitter.
Because it's supposed to be stationary in the end.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like, maybe the Predator, that like giant 21-inch, like anything that's massive possible. That like is supposed to be a laptop but really isn't. Like I could see that happening, but otherwise not really.
Well, I mean, if like I don't know, random thing also as well. If you look at actually the base, what do you call it, the base clock speed versus the 1080, it's a little bit lower. It's probably pushing out more thermals.
That's true.
So I mean, more thermals in a notebook's never a good thing. So yeah, look, okay. Either way, 1080 Ti, amazing card in terms of the specs that we can see so far.
Right.
I think its price point makes sense versus what the other current ones are at the moment. In terms of mobile, I don't see this being something in like the standard mobile notebooks in terms of like, let's say, $2,000, $3,000 even. This is going to be something in those ridiculous notebooks, or let's say the Vortex, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Cool.
Awesome. So what's up next?
I think this one's on you. Esports Summit at Rage.
Yes.
I'm less involved in esports than.
Okay, so quick background on Rage. Rage is a technology and gaming expo, like we mentioned, biggest one in the Southern Hemisphere. It takes place in Johannesburg at the it's not called the Coca-Cola Dome anymore. It is now the Ticket Pro Dome. Yes, at the Ticket Pro Dome. It's basically the same kind of scale in terms of E3, in terms of foot traffic. It's just, let's say, 3 times smaller in terms of physical space. It's a pretty great event. If you're ever in South Africa and you know, around here sometime in October, definitely plan to go through to Rage. So every year at Rage, there's always basically the normal vendors, suppliers, that kind of thing, showing off the latest products, sometimes showing off the latest games, and esports has been growing in South Africa at a tremendous rate. Now, basically, a company named Games, with the lowercase e, and Rage, the actual holding
with
company.
A uppercase A.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. I didn't think of that. Basically, these two companies joined forces now, and they just trying to kind of showcase esports more and do a talk on it on the first day of Rage. So it'll be the Friday of Rage. I'm just going to scroll down a bit quickly. So the main things, the topics that they're going to be discussing is esports as a global movement, because obviously, you know, South Africa is trying to expand into a global and try to bring global inward. The South African esports landscape, exactly what I said. Brands and audience reaching a millennial generation. So this is a big thing in South Africa, is where a lot of the clans are trying to kind of get more, or clans, so like a MGO, basically teams, trying to get more exposure, and most of the time trying to get more exposure comes from a vendor.
Influencer marketing.
Yes, so what happens with this is they will reach out to companies like Corsair, SteelSeries, you know what I mean, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
But now it needs to be like kind of a two-way handshake where we'll give you products, we'll give you support, but you guys need to what do you call it? Give us kind of the exposure.
It's branding.
It's branding. It's branding at its heart. So it's just pretty much a talk on esports, everything that's happening local, and kind of like how to take it from where it is right now and move it to something that we want in the future, which is cool.
Okay, I mean Can South African esports grow to the point where it matches the world stage? Like, how far behind is the South African esports scene compared to the rest of the world?
I think in terms of the actual players, soon. As in like, you know, what is our standard of our let's say athletes
Yeah.
versus international athletes, I think we already have some.
Okay.
We have some players that have like outplayed international scene
Like
players.
that Hearthstone guy.
Yeah, I mean there we go. What was his name? The Joker.
Okay.
He already came first in that WSG tournament. So in terms of players, definitely we got it. In terms of the actual events, the Masters that's coming up at Rage is the biggest we have, which is only R1,000,000, $70,000
Somewhere
roughly,
around there.
split between two titles, which is $35,000 each. Which
split between each member of the teams, which is
each team first,
Okay.
and then the members of the teams.
Oh, because the managers and the teams themselves have to take a cut out of it.
No, but even what I'm saying is $35,000, and let's say 20,000 is first place, and then of that it's split 6 ways.
So basically, they're not even making enough to pay for their bills.
No, but that's
not for like a good portion of their year.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, but
Okay.
remember that's also why they have sponsorships and partnerships and that kind of thing. I mean,
our audio is about 200 milliseconds behind.
Oopsie, that sucks.
You might want to check that. Anyways, so sponsors.
Give me a second, just quickly double check on the audio. It does not say we have any form of delay, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. In terms of the events that we have, in terms of money, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of investment in this country because something like soccer, sure, we had the FIFA 2010 World Cup and we had massive external investment. Esports, we've got an external investment, but like...
Do you think that's what it would take? Like, why?
Yes.
Okay. So, like, the red eye guy coming in, like him pushing it on his end internationally.
This is the thing, like, the way I see it is that it's like me and you having a competition, what is the pool of money we have between us? Just kind of what we have, right? You always need to get an external source to try to kind of like get that pool bigger and bigger. And in terms of South Africa...
Oh, he asked how far behind South Africa? 200 milliseconds?
Yeah, so in terms of South African gaming to EU, it's roughly 170 to 220 milliseconds.
See, I'm far too slow for your jokes.
I didn't even catch it either.
Yeah,
so
that's just what happened.
Bad.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. South African esports growing exponentially. We do need external support. There's enough things happening that it'll get there. We just don't know how long it's going to take. But it's definitely, if you look at it 5 years ago versus now, it's way more promising now.
Okay.
Cool. And moving on to the next thing, Battlefield 1. So Battlefield 1's coming out in October, and we put up an article today about the new system requirements for the game.
Right.
So just quickly waiting for that to pop up.
Is your website down?
Oh wow, had to be mine, eh? Okay, cool. So Battlefield 1 system requirements were released today, and this is something kind of confusing to say the least, because basically minimum requirements is kind of what we're confused about, because they're looking at a AMD FX 6350 as a minimum AMD processor, which is kind of junk, to be honest.
Is that a 6-core? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a terrible core. Let's put it that way. It's not something that you're going to use for a gaming system in terms of like even medium range.
Yeah.
Whereas now they're saying in Intel 6600K processor i5 as a minimum requirement. That's crazy. You're comparing like a 4500 Rand processor to a 2500 Rand processor and saying that that's the minimum requirement. I know for a fact, I mean, my notebook was playing the game and this is worse than a 6600K.
Okay, so what does this have to do with like DX12 being able to split rendering loads across multiple cores? Like, is that why they're suggesting this? Because they're giving you minimum specs for DX12 when it's better able to utilize the extra cores? So a hex core on AMD side is going to be able to better like function than the quad core.
But I disagree, because the whole thing about DX12 is that you don't need as much processing power. So from Intel side, what's wrong with recommending that?
No, it's not that you don't need as much processing power. It's just that it can
utilize it better.
You don't need better single-threaded performance. You can get
multi-threaded,
multi-threaded performance. Although that still doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense.
So maybe because it's like the highest end quad core we have right now versus their highest end 6-core.
Like their highest middle of the road.
Yeah.
Like what's above the...
Because that's moving on to like the recommended spec. If you're looking at the actual 8-core version, which that's also debatable.
The 8350. So basically, and then the 4790K, which...
That's weird. Because like, why are you using the latest gen i5 K processor overclockable as a minimum spec
for...
as a minimum, and then taking 2 generations before's i7 version, non-K processor.
That doesn't even make sense. What?
Not at all.
What?
Not at all. That's directly off their website.
What?
That's what I'm getting at. And okay, 8 gigs. So let's just quickly look through the specs. Okay, 8 gigs of RAM minimum. That's fine. Games are becoming bigger, textures, etc. DX12 compatible card, sure, because now there's DX12. One thing that's also, give me a second. What did Battlefield 4 have as well? Mantle, right?
I don't know.
I think it had Mantle support, which makes sense now. DX12. Okay, never mind. And an online connection requirement of 512 kilobytes per second. Now, this is something even as well that I'm a little bit upset about.
Okay.
Speaking about esports, Battlefield is one of the titles in South Africa that's not tiny, but has kind of been trying to expand via. So 512 times 8, 496.
Okay,
So
it's
a 4 meg line.
Okay.
So 4 megabits per second line is a minimum requirement to be able to play this game online. Now, let's say the average South African even has a 4 meg line, which is not the case.
Right.
You're utilizing the entire line just for this.
Is it actually utilizing that line? I never checked my network protocol when I was.
As a minimum requirement, I'd expect that's like kind of like what we need for this just to run. Like your mom's on Facebook in the other room, you're you're not going to be able to play the game.
I'm not sure. Okay.
I don't know. It's weird. We're not entirely sure what's going on, but at this stage, it might even just be changed. I mean, it seems kind of like they got someone at DICE that was like, listen, we need system requirements, keyboard cat.
512. Okay. Do you think they meant kilobit? Because that's kind of been, the whole Telecom thing. Hey, let's go there. Let's go to Telecom right now.
True. Well,
and how
probably kilobits per second might even be a typo.
It could be a typo because capitalizing the B versus not capitalizing it is a huge.
It's an 8 times difference.
It's an 8 times difference, and something that even the network professionals over at Telecom have been. Let me just have been screwing us around.
I'm going to pull up the article quickly. So first thing,
you do this because I'm salty. So you talk about the practical facts, and I will do the saltiness.
Okay, so basically, Telecom brought out a unlimited,
uncapped, and unthrottled for non-peer-to-peer applications.
Yes, a solution that was going to be LTE and up to 90 megabits per second download and 30 uploads somewhere there, something still crazy for South African terms. I mean, South Africans are used to like a 10 meg line as being a good line.
Even 90 is good for American standards.
No, it's true, but
even on LTE, yeah.
That's true. But now here's the thing. So that was what was advertised, but something you'll learn in South Africa is what the advertised thing and what you're actually getting is not always the same.
But that's okay. I understand the advertising thing. I get it if it said uncapped, but then you read the terms and conditions and it's like, but really there's an acceptable use policy and it's going to be like 300-400 megabytes or gigabytes per month. But really, what the marketing thing was like, hey, it's uncapped, and then it was like, what's the fine print? No, really, it's uncapped for basically everything, streaming, game downloads, everything. Everything that a power user would actually want was unthrottled, while you only while you only got 50 gigabytes of peer-to-peer or torrent applications, or the bandwidth of that. So they took that away. They instituted, I think it was
recent. It was recent.
I think it was late last week, where they were just like, everybody who's over 200 gigabytes for the month, you're going down to 4 megabits per second.
Last week Monday, because Tuesday you got affected.
Oh, that's true. I forgot how far away that was.
Yeah. So this happened basically 8 days ago or 7 days ago, whatever.
Right, but Telecom's just like slowly getting the word out on whatever's going on. So it basically was, you go over 200 gigabytes, you go down to 4 megabits per second.
From 90.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Theoretical up to 90. I was getting somewhere in the range of like 40 to 50.
That's still good.
But that's still 90% lost because I went over 200 gigabytes, which I had already exceeded by that point, and I wasn't notified that's what the acceptable use policy was. So you get throttled down to 4 megabits per second, then you get 50 gigabytes on 4 megabits per second, and then the rest of the month was either on 256 kilobits per second or kilobytes.
We don't even know.
We don't even know because nobody at Telecom, who apparently works for the marketing, would actually specify the difference between bytes and bits.
They'll probably even know the difference, to be honest.
I don't want to go there, but it was infuriating, like in the articles, but then also like in the press announcements by Telecom, as well as like some written articles. Lazy Gamer article is not one of them. They did a good job of making sure that they were talking about the right thing.
I mean, they had all
But
the values, yeah.
I've read other industry articles, tech people who are writing, oh, you get throttled down to 4 megabytes per second.
That'd be amazing.
That's 32 megabits per second. That's perfectly acceptable. So there was a huge backlash on Twitter and everywhere else about this throttling, and Telecom came out today. No, they changed it yesterday, and they came out explaining it today that, hey, you get an extra 100 gigabytes of that uncapped or the unthrottled LTE. But then when you get past that point, it's 4 megabits per second for 50 gigabytes, and then 2 megabits per second past that point. But we don't know if that there's a further cap with the 2 megabits per second. If there's not, it's livable, but it's still not what we were sold. And the most annoying thing about this article, what Telecom did was they added another 50 gigabytes to the peer-to-peer torrent applications. They said you can have 100 now. Nobody was asking that.
Well, the abusers were usually the people in peer-to-peer.
Yes, but they were doing seed boxes. They were using HTTP protocols to do their torrenting so that they were getting around the peer-to-peer protocol 50 gigabyte cap, but then we're using terabytes of data. So they were
looking at you.
Yes, they were abusing it, but at the same time, like nobody, I saw no outcry on we don't have enough peer-to-peer.
That's true.
Because everybody was like, we have enough unthrottled data that
we just want it to work.
We can stream everything legally now. We don't have to download it ahead of time.
But I mean, this is something we spoke about earlier in the week. Is that like I have a 10 meg line with a 3 meg upload, and I use, let's say, 200 to 500 gigs a month, depending on the month, depending on what gaming titles come out. Because like let's say the new Doom comes out, that's 50 gigs. I'm not doing any illegal activity whatsoever, and I'm going over their threshold every month. No. So I don't have Telecom LTE. I'll be honest, as soon as this was announced, all of my friends were speaking about it, and I was like,
you tried to get it, don't even
I tried to get it, but eventually when we did more research, we were like, we know it's going to change. We just don't know when.
No.
It happened before, that's the thing.
I know, but it shouldn't have. I mean, they're letting people get out of their contracts for free, although you call them and try to get out of your contract for free and let's see if that happens. I spent an entire day on the phone with them trying to get out of this.
Well, call them and see how long it takes for someone to answer. If the line doesn't cut off.
No, the response time was very
respectable.
Respectable, but like, just
that's new.
They told me to call sales to cancel my contract.
Shouldn't it be accounts?
They told me you have to hang up and call the sales department. I don't know.
And by then you've spent like hours with their time.
I'm salty about this because we were sold on a promise that was immediately changed.
Sorry, someone said in the chat, MTN screwed us over with uncapped back in 2012. That was crazy. Okay, so
explain.
Quickly letting you know, you didn't live here. MTN had this uncapped service for 899 Rand, something like that a month, where you could basically use as much as you want whenever you want, and it would just have like ridiculous speeds, like what was attainable. Then eventually it was called like Unlimited Light or something like that, and they basically pushed it down to a version that was like 399 Rand a month, and it had a soft cap or whatever, but like people were using it and like 200, 300, 400 gigabytes or whatever in a month of like 300 Rand. Right? It was crazy. And then all of a sudden, what they did is they cut it down to a 10 gig cap, thereafter 128 kilobits per second. People went nuts.
Can you even legitimately load Twitter or Facebook on that?
Can you do anything with that? I don't think Outlook
can
works
a fax machine run on that?
Yes. 56K is more. But either way, like this is not the first time this has happened, so obviously a lot of people they were waiting for this to happen, but at the same time, like, why? We shouldn't have to wait for things to go wrong.
But that's like their marketing push was just like, no, really, we're not gonna screw you over this time. That's what their like marketing push was. Like, no, really, it's really unthrottled for all of these applications. You will never, in bold, in all caps, never be throttled for these types of applications.
Marketing.
But even the terms, at least, okay.
Brett.
I understand. No, you don't have to tell me about South Africa.
No.
At least in the terms and conditions, let me know what the acceptable use rate is.
Oh wow! Limits to 32 kilobits per second after 3 gigs now. So
That's
MTN sucks now.
I
In terms of that,
I haven't heard anything good about MTN coming out recently.
Africa split from them.
Well, then something's going on in Nigeria with them getting sued. Then their terrible
Crazy.
customer support on Twitter. Like,
I have an MTN contract for like 15 years or something like that, and whenever we go into the store, absolutely useless front end people. But then you speak to the manager, you get what you want sorted, and if that doesn't work, you go to Twitter, have an answer within a day.
okay.
So I kind of think it's just kind of like it's companies where the person in the front end doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, but it's also sometimes like, hey, I'm new to this job, someone's busy teaching me while I'm here,
Yeah.
and you walked in today. There's nothing you can do about it.
I'm salty because they just dropped the hammer on us. Like,
It was amazing.
It was amazing, and then they were like, "Hey, it's not anymore." At least if you would have put it in the terms and conditions that hey, 300 gigabytes is the threshold. Like, if you would have done that, I'd be okay. Because if it was amazing since I signed up for the contract, and then you're like, "Hey, we're actually enforcing what we told you about," totally fine. Like, I signed that contract.
You maybe
I
would have
didn't.
got yourself like, let's say, a slow ADSL line to
I
just
would have had
upload
a
your YouTube videos
yeah.
overnight.
I would have had a backup plan. I would have been prepared for this. I would have, but now it's like, oh, hey, you have no internet, and now you have to get a
Well,
second internet connection to do your job, but it takes 4 to 6 weeks to get anybody to come out and install it.
just the telephone line first, then there's
Like, I can't even get it done. Anyways,
it's sad. I think that's one of the issues right now, though. Last week with the thing, who was it on Twitter that made that mess up again? With the whole like,
MTN?
it was MTN, yeah, it was MTN, right?
Yeah.
So
The eye
MTN,
roll.
Telecom, yeah, the eye roll. Sorry, MTN, Telecom, that kind of thing. If you want to get something done today, you have an issue you want resolved today. Good luck.
Yeah.
That's like all I can take from this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So the value per gigabyte is still really good on that plan. Like 300 gigabytes
Yeah,
for 6 to 800
and it's
rand.
mobile. It's
Yeah,
mobile data.
that's actually a good plan, but it's just you sold it as one thing, you dropped the hammer on something else, and now everybody's just like, "Come on, guys." Anyways, we can
Well, look. Speaking of
we can move on.
kilobits per second streaming, that kind
Well,
of
wait,
thing.
no, we have that.
Oh yes, we have something very cool to show you guys. So Brett mentioned in the beginning of this episode that myself and him built a new PC called Project Violet. I love it so much, and we've just got a quick little teaser of the
It's
upcoming
very
video.
very short because I can't give away too much. But here, and it's done. There we go.
So that'll be coming out soon, probably next week. You said.
I don't know. It's good. It takes more editing
hope
than
so.
a normal video. Like I think there was like 3 hours of footage from that, so having to sort through that all,
That took my
edit it
time.
all, correct it all. Yeah, it'll be coming out. Yeah,
It'll come out sometime in the foreseeable future,
yeah,
hopefully.
yeah. So answering the questions, wasn't the point of LTE uncapped meant to be for people who had no ADSL line? Yeah, ADSL or fiber, people who lived in a region where they weren't getting the lines actually dug out
That's
to them.
true.
Like they sold it as that, and it's like, hey, you can actually be productive now. No, you can't. You
And
can't.
now those people have to try to find an alternative that they didn't
Right.
have to begin
They've
with.
corrected it to some extent, but like this should have never happened in the first place.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, okay, we can move on to the next thing.
Cool. So
My next thing, rather.
your next thing. So Netflix just released a benchmark. I'm gonna pull up the article while you talk.
Let's just be a quick subject. So Netflix created a video encoding benchmark. It's basically a 4K 60 FPS. No, six. Is it 60 FPS?
60 FPS, yes.
Is that the
Yeah, that's the term they said there. So that's probably like 50 megabits per second. If I'm just trying to think of
right? But
like
the interesting thing about this is that it's not just bound to Netflix. It's also like they release it as Creative Commons, so everybody can use this. This can be put on any platform anywhere, and they created it as a way to actually benchmark video encoding processes as well as like the infrastructure to be able to deliver 4K 60 FPS content, which I actually don't think is hugely relevant in South Africa because I don't think they're
Well, for me that's relevant. Because
Explain.
today I finally installed Netflix. Like
Woo!
a million years later, and I have a 4K TV, and the first thing I saw was Daredevil, and it said there 4K UHD. And I was like, finally some content to actually use on this TV.
Right.
But remember, I got a 10 meg line.
Right.
So open it up and buffer away.
Can you even get 1080 on that?
Yeah, 1080 uses like 4 megabits per second or something like that.
Okay.
I think maybe 5, I don't know, something.
Well,
No, it must be about 4.
Well, I didn't know what like the compression rates would be on that.
Well, what I remember from what I was searching for previously is that roughly 20 megabits to 25 megabits per second is what's required for 4K, which is crazy because it's not scaled very well. If you look at 2 meg is what you need for 720, 4 meg is what you need for 1080, and then all of a sudden 20, so 5 times the amount for only 4 times the res.
Well, it's not even just res. I think there's greater color accuracy. I don't think it's HDR content.
It isn't.
But
I don't know.
I'm not going to say something I'm not super technically accurate on, but I think there's more to the 4K content than just the
actual
quadruple resolution.
That's true. Well, look, either way, I think it is kind of cool. It's something that's valid to everyone that has a 4K TV or has even a bad line. You want to see how it can run. Can it run?
Not just for them, but also for the TV makers themselves. Like actually being able to distinguish can our smart TV actually even process 4K 60 FPS?
That's true.
I don't necessarily think this is a great step up for consumer stuff, but it's rather a great not marketing, but great for the market overall because it allows everybody to actually be able to use it. And that's something that I really think Netflix has done well on. Like they started off because it's not a South African company, so let me tell you the American history of Netflix. Netflix back in the day when I was growing up, when I was in high school, what you would do, you would get Netflix and they would send you DVDs in the mail. Yes. This is why Blockbuster no longer exists. Do you even know about Blockbuster?
Yeah.
Okay. This is why Blockbuster
Mr.
no longer
DVD.
exists. It's not because of the streaming, it's because of the DVD delivery service. They would send you a DVD, you'd be able to watch it and keep it however long you wanted. You would
one at a time though.
Well, it depends on the plan that you got.
Okay.
I think if you paid like $10 a month, you could have 3 discs at a time. So you have the DVDs. Then when you're done watching it, you put it in the envelope. You seal it in the Netflix package. You put it in the mail for free. You don't pay any postage, and it goes back to them. They deliver you the next in your queue, and then they evolve into a streaming service, which then provides all of this content. But
way more convenient.
Right, but then they don't even stop there. They didn't stop at, oh, hey, now we're a streaming service. They said, okay, we're going to produce original content.
Yeah.
And now their original content is some of the best out there. I think, didn't they win an Oscar?
Isn't House of Cards?
House of Cards, Daredevil, Fuller House.
I don't watch that.
Anyways, it's a joke.
Wasn't Stranger Things as well?
Stranger Things. But then Beast of No Nation, I know it was definitely nominated for an Oscar, but I think it also won. But they're becoming a production house, not just even a content distribution platform. So they're actually producing things that are moving the entire film industry and content consumption industry forward everywhere. So that's why this is relevant. That's why I like it. I'm good on the Netflix thing, even though they keep raising the prices. But my mother-in-law pays for our Netflix subscription. So
well, I just got the first 3 months, so I'll decide a month later. We'll see.
Oh.
And speaking of other things to do with screens,
we need to work on our transitions.
Yes, we probably do. Okay, so we spoke about this last week. You sold your DK2. I still have my DK2. And the reason why I, at this stage, never considered upgrading to a CV1 Oculus was because of the Vive. Now, what actually made the Vive, in my opinion, better than the Oculus was the fact that it had the controllers. The whole room scale thing, sure, it's great, but I don't really care. It doesn't influence me to the degree of a purchase decision. It would just be which was more convenient with what games.
Right.
It probably comes down to the content.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is the touch controllers have been missing for
you bought the
forever.
You bought the CV1 with the promise of an Xbox One controller. Or
That's
was it
terrible?
Was it
an Xbox One. It was Xbox One.
Okay.
But that was March. If I remember correctly, it was somewhere around about the 28th of March that was the release. So that's 6 months down the line.
You were still living down the street at that point.
I was. So this is the thing I'm getting at. That they finally go and announce the controller. So I'm going to pull up the article quickly. And it's 200 euros. It's insane.
Which, if you add the 200 euros on top of the cost of an Oculus,
it's more than a Vive.
And then you can move around with the Vive.
Look, no.
may not be the best feature, but like it's still something that the Vive has over the Oculus.
Okay. I'm angry about this to the degree that it's like, could they not just release it earlier? It would have made, like, I've had my hands on like 5 different Vives because they're accessible.
Yeah.
Everyone bought them because they're accessible and I've tried things out. We've not tried enough stuff on Oculus because it hasn't been accessible.
Well,
Now,
the Oculus, I think nobody's bringing in the Oculus because it's not as
it's for full.
interactive. It's like, hey, here's the CV1, you're at Rage, here's an Xbox controller. Have fun.
It's putting a cake in front of someone, you can't eat it.
Because well, no, not that you can't eat it. It's just that you can't eat it dignified with a fork. You have to like slam your face in it.
But look, okay, what I'm getting at is that like the Oculus. Okay, if you look at the headset for whatever
Headset to
headset, they say that the Vive is better in terms of room tracking because of obviously the camera built into it, but that only gets influenced when you do room scale. With the Oculus, you're in a stationary position, maybe looking around,
Right, and then you have
and
the sensor in
apparently
front.
the head tracking is better. Now, then when you look at the controllers, apparently the Oculus controllers are better too. At least that's what industry professionals are saying. So, I don't know, like the price point now being more expensive and there's no proof of concept because everyone's already used to the Vive and their only experience was versus the CD1 without touch controllers, this is a failure.
Well, at least in the consumer aspect, like it being at Computex, they had the Oculus controllers. Like the touch controllers were available to these suppliers who were making these grand shows. But anything in South Africa, people are importing the Oculus. They're not getting the controllers with
but
it. Nobody's supplying them.
Not even South Africa. If you look at something like Computex, that's for industry professionals.
Right.
Industry professionals will say something, but you need the consumers to be able to interact with it before you actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, Woody needs to bring them in. Like, I think if there was enough events going on, public events, not industry events, where
Yeah.
people got to try out the touch controllers, maybe it would have given a new perspective on Oculus. People would say, hey guys, I've tried the CV1 with touch controllers, it's better than the Vive, and I'll wait for it. Like, that might have been a situation. But right now, VR adoption's already dead.
Right.
And that's the
I mean,
problem.
it's already
It's
stagnated.
too late.
It's already stagnated to the point where people are just like, we'll wait till the next release. But then, yeah, I don't know. The pricing of the touch controllers is absolutely ridiculous.
It's ludicrous.
It puts it over the Vive. Makes no sense. The Vive is a better experience overall, just because
like,
it's been out longer.
The only thing I can compare this to, so there was some guy on GitHub that basically had a like a plugin where you could basically install some custom driver, use a DK2, and then the Razer Hydra. So what the Razer Hydra was basically a controller similar to the PlayStation Move controllers, but it was a tethered solution.
Okay.
And then what would happen is it had this like orb. I don't really know how the tech worked. Resonates with it, whatever, via Bluetooth, or I don't know whatever.
Okay.
And basically, then it would be like the Vive controllers. But this was years ago. This is like 5 years ago or something crazy. So this guy took basically the what do you call it? The Razer. I just said the word. Sorry, the Razer Hydra
Yeah.
and the DK2, and emulated a full-on Vive kit. So you could buy this system for like next to nothing because DK2s are going for like $200, and a Razer Hydra is not even $100.
Right.
So
It's just the resolution wouldn't be as good.
yeah. But the thing I'm getting at is that this was a tethered solution for $100, not even. So I think it was close to like $70. The only thing they did is they kind of made that wireless, and
But-
now all of a sudden,
But if it has
so much money.
if it has the accuracy of tracking as the headset does without the light rooms, that probably takes a lot of technology. Lighthouses, rather.
There's probably a lot of reason behind its price, and there's maybe justification in their eyes, but there's no justification to the actual consumer going, I can buy something on the market right now that's trusted.
What if
for cheaper?
This is Facebook's ploy to get people to look at the Oculus and Vive and say, that's ridiculous, let's just buy a Gear VR.
I hope not. Because Gear VR, I'll say it right now, it sucks.
But if you look at what Facebook is as a company, they want to distribute everything to the masses. They want their platform to everybody. They want to provide internet to everybody. They want to provide VR to everybody. You've seen that picture of Mark Zuckerberg walking by the mindless masses who are wearing the Gear VR. I know it's not as good, but that's because we've tried the full-on fledged VR system,
full immersion.
What if Facebook is actually trying to usurp the high-end VR market?
Okay, it's possible, but the problem with this right now is that it's like, okay, Oculus and Vive, with or without controllers, has head tracking. So basically the positional tracking X, Y, Z. Now adding the actual controllers, we both know it's like a world apart. It gives you so much more depth to it, and you feel like you're really there. The Gear VR headset is basically the same thing as Google Cardboard. You shove this on your face and you can see 360-degree photos.
Right.
There's no immersion. I've used that thing like 4 times now, and not once did I even feel the slightest like I'm there. Whereas when you put on the Oculus for the first time, you were like, whoa, this is weird. Like you feel like you're in another world.
Right.
So Facebook, especially if it's something for social media, they're gonna want immersion. They're gonna want you to be able to like interact with your friends. You can't just look at them like, "Hey, how are you doing?" Whatever. They're gonna want you to like fake handshakes
Right.
and like high five each other and like emoticons are a thing because it's text. But now, what are you gonna do when it comes to VR? It's gonna be gestures.
Or it's gonna be like a physical poop emoji.
Squat while wearing the headset.
altogether.
That's gross. Okay, I don't think so. I don't think so. I just think the price point sucks. It'll probably come down.
Tinfoil hat.
But just why 6 month wait for something that we could have probably had sooner?
Yeah.
And sorry, last thing, will it work with the DK2?
Probably not.
Because if it did, then sure, I'll buy one.
Fair enough, because the DK2, yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Last topic. So GoPro, manufacturer of some of the most awesome.
Don't hit the table, man, or microphone.
One of the most awesome manufacturers of action cams just released the GoPro Karma
Wow,
drone.
could you sell that any harder?
It's the truth.
One of the most awesome companies.
It's the truth. Like GoPro has always been one of the companies where every release they have is
Always. How long have they been around?
Years now?
Like 10.
Yeah?
Oh, wait. Anyways.
No, always since they've been out.
You're hyperbolizing so much.
Okay, GoPro makes awesome action cameras, and they finally released a drone named the GoPro Karma. So what is it? It's an $800 drone that basically has a detachable gimbal and a controller in one package. It bends, not bends, what do you call it?
That sound effect didn't come.
It folds and fits in an awesome bag. So
that's your sound effect for folding.
I didn't know what I wanted to say.
Okay.
So the thing about this though, it's a really well priced drone, and it's coming from GoPro.
How much is the Phantom 4?
Phantom 4 is over $1,000.
Are you sure? I'm gonna look it up.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Okay. So just speaking about it quickly, it supports the GoPro Hero 5 action cams that just came out. It's expensive.
Yeah.
The Hero 5 action cam that just came out, the Hero 5 Black, the Hero 5 Session,
as well as the Hero 4.
For Black.
Okay. I don't know the difference, black or silver. Ah, look at that.
That wasn't in another article I read.
Okay.
Okay, so either way, I think it's pretty cool, but I actually have a question. Like, do you think this is an innovation, or do you think this is a catching up game? Because the reason I say that, okay, if I look at it, you have a DJI Osmo. Yep. So for the people that don't know, DJI Osmo is basically handheld gimbal camera.
Yeah.
What's the price on that?
$600, somewhere.
Okay, so let's say $500.
Okay.
I had a what do you call it? A Parrot Bebop drone, which is as a drone kind of similar to this, and it had a built-in 1080p camera, and that was $500 as well.
Right.
What GoPro did is they took both of those products, kind of put it together, and it's still detachable, the gimbal, with a controller. Now, mine with the controller was like $1,000 or something ridiculous.
Okay.
So, sure, it seems like an innovation where it's like they're taking all these cool things and they're putting it together, and the price is amazing.
Yeah.
But is it not just a catch-up game?
Even if it is, so what?
They've been saying for like 2 years, you need to wait for this.
So, I mean, it's a good price. It works with something that a lot of people have. Like, you just have to buy the drone now. You don't need to go out and buy a drone, and then, like, you also need to get a GoPro. You buy the GoPro, you buy the drone. You were going to buy the GoPro anyways, or you already have a GoPro, now you only need a drone.
That's true.
I mean, I don't think this is necessarily... I wouldn't position this for GoPro as like a catch-up game or as something like they're behind in the industry. I think this just makes sense for their consumers. Like, GoPro adoption is pretty much ubiquitous amongst like anybody who's doing anything extreme sports wise. And so just saying, hey, we released a drone for you for the people who already have the GoPro or who are going to upgrade to the new one. Here you go. You just slap it on, then you just take it off, and then you go on your merry way. I think this is I think this is creating an ecosystem rather than playing catch up or anything like that. Which, yeah,
they kind of. I think the easy way to put it is that like GoPro is the Apple of action cams. It's an ecosystem like iTunes, that kind of thing. Like you get used to it and you get stuck in it, and it's not that it's a bad thing. I mean, GoPro products like they okay to a degree they are more expensive than some of the competitors, but you know what you're getting for that price, and you never ever expect bad quality. Like the lowest end GoPro has very acceptable video.
Okay.
And you always know that it's. I mean, there's even a new thing they touted now was the GoPro Care, I think it's called something like that, where basically you pay like a premium of like 10%, something like that,
Okay.
per device, even the Karma, and no matter what happens to it, other than it goes missing, you get a new one.
Huh.
So if you snap the thing in half and you take it to them, they'll give you a new one, which is pretty crazy.
I mean, that makes sense for an action company,
Yeah.
an action capturing company, whatever.
And I mean, this is the thing, like, an action cam, like, sure, there's those videos of guys, it drops out of an airplane or whatever, and, like, the thing survives, but that's not really a normal usage case scenario. Like, the action cam falling is probably from the height you are.
Right. I
Now,
think it's like 6 feet or something.
yeah, whereas, like, let's say the Karma, if something goes wrong, this thing's gonna crash. Like,
Right.
I owned a drone, you don't own a drone and not crash that thing 5 times in the first day.
Right.
And that's the problem is that it's like they don't want people crashing this thing, especially if they like the Apple. So everyone's like they have their eyes on them. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, we don't care about you anymore. So I like it. The specs of the Karma are pretty good. In terms of like with the actual GoPro 5 attached to it, I think it's only like an extra $200 or $300, which is crazy because like that's probably $550 worth of extra GoPro attached to it.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I'm looking forward to this release because I think it definitely fills a void in the drone market where you've got these terrible little mini drones for like $20 and you should not buy one.
The first drone I ever had was like the world's smallest drone that like was the size of a quarter. My kids and I flew that around the house, crashing in the wall so many times.
But that was just
fun.
It was just fun. There was
Right.
no point to it other than fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there was no actual usage for it.
Right.
And like then some what do you call it? The Phantom was kind of like the one that became iconic where everyone attached their GoPros to it.
Right.
And their price has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Like you don't buy a Phantom under $1,000. And the Bebop drone and the Bebop 2 were pretty cool. But even before then, there was the what was the one Linus even also used the massive one, the Parrot Aero drone. I think that's like a $300 device, whatever, 720p camera, pretty good, but you can't really use it outside that efficiently. So now all of a sudden you got something under $1,000, over 500, and ridiculous amount of value to it.
It's true.
Like you're not just getting a drone.
Yeah.
I mean, would you have, if you had known and this had been out, would you have got this instead of your Osmo?
No. Different camera quality. Like the GoPro, I don't want the GoPro. I don't like the fisheye lens. Like that's a different style than what I'm going for. I don't do enough extreme sports for anything besides like a slight fisheye to make sense. Like it's just not. Yeah, I need more flat profile in my videos, which the GoPro will not afford me unless I do lens correction, which then will take forever on video encoding.
So basically, you want both.
No,
I'd want both.
I have no use. I have no proper use case for a GoPro at this point, at least. I'm not doing anything that would necessitate owning one.
That's true. Well, the one thing that sucks about this is there's no mention of waterproofing at this stage, and
I don't think you can waterproof a drone. Like the motors are exposed.
Okay, there's a lot of drones out there that at least have like landing gear that's waterproof, and then it's like what do you call it? Flotation devices or whatever. My Bebop drone is in the ocean. My brother put it in the ocean.
Somebody's bitter.
I'm super bitter about it. So that's the thing. Like, there's actually is a waterproof one. I remember there's this one that they showed someone throwing in the water. So
it was the Lily or whatever.
Yeah,
the one that like followed you.
And it even like takes off from the water. So,
but that I don't
doesn't
even think
have
that's
that.
released yet. I think that was just a concept.
That's true, but there's still a lot of missing like. Not missing features, but things we don't even know yet. Does it have follow me? There's a lot of things we don't know about it. But at least
because it was just announced today, I think it was.
Yeah.
So.
What we do know is it looks pretty cool for its price.
Okay. Cool. All right. I think that wraps up the tech topics that we had on hand for today. So that means we are moving on into. Do you want to do the Q&A?
Yeah, let's go for it. So,
Okay.
guys, if you have any questions based off the things we spoke about earlier,
Or any questions of things that you've read that we did not cover.
that's true. I'm just going to quickly go over it again, just so you know what we might have spoken about. So we spoke about the 1050, the 1080 Ti, the Esports Summit at Rage, the system requirements for Battlefield 1, Brett's terrible Telecom LTE, Netflix benchmarking, the Oculus Touch, and then finally the GoPro Karma. Just a quick note on that as well. The new GoPro, the GoPros that were announced, I think the Session is actually way better spec than the previous one.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's also very, very well priced. Anyway, Q&A, guys. Go ahead.
So where was that underwater drone video? It wasn't underwater. It would take off from the water. So.
Okay, I don't know if he's asking. So
Did you have an underwater drone? That
no. So underwater drone
a
video.
submergible drone.
There was the lily.
Submersible.
There was a lily you could throw in water and it could take off from water. If you're
Right.
talking about my drone, well, it's gone. It's literally at the bottom of the ocean.
Nobody was talking about your drone today. Okay. Are y'all going to cover Rage on the channel? So yes, I have my media pass for Rage. I will be going. I will be doing some coverage of it. Byron is not officially affiliated with my channel. He will be covering it as Game Arena.
I'll actually be covering it as myself.
Okay, you cover that.
No. I'll be covering.
Let you answer your own questions.
I'll be covering it as myself, but assisting with Game Arena. There's some of my staff that'll be covering it as well. This year, I'm trying to take a little bit more of a chilled back approach to Rage because every single year for the past 5 years I've been working there. I actually want to just experience it for once. Like I haven't done that in half a decade, so I think I'll probably cover a day, but the other 2 days actually just.
I'll be there the entire weekend. I'll
Yeah.
be there all 3 days. So I'm not sure what type of coverage I'm gonna get. I did Rage Cape Town, and that was kind of like a primer for me to learn how to do event coverage. I'm not sure I'm gonna go as many videos as I did for Rage Cape Town. So
If you guys are there on the Friday, we'll be there together. So see one of our faces, you'll see the other.
but no, I just need a ride there. You don't have to spend all day with me.
I thought we were going together.
You were driving me. Anyways.
Okay, I'm gonna hide in the corner then.
Okay, I want to answer VS Tech. He was asking us to give him nice gaming desktops for 200,000 or 20,000 India money. Sorry, this show is not for tech advice. Like this is a live show where we're just talking about news and gaming. If you want to message me in my comments on any of my other videos, I will happily answer you there. I unfortunately don't know how to convert to rupees or anything like that. So like specific questions about specific components or anything like that, totally drop me a line on any of my other videos. Unfortunately, this live show is not the place for that.
$300. Wow.
Okay.
That's super low. I'm sorry.
Okay, what's the price on the Telecom LTE package? 800 Rand.
It was $599 though.
Well, yes,
At
it
first.
started at 599.
Yeah. Which is still not bad. Can't send links. New underwater drone.
New underwater drone flies and swims. Sorry, I can't do anything about you being able to share links. It's not within my power. That's YouTube. Okay. I'm not gonna watch that right. Oh. Okay, developed at Rutgers. So this is totally proof of concept, not coming to market anytime soon. So yeah.
Anyone got tickets? As far as I know, don't hold me to this. GameArena.co.za, there will be tickets, a competition for tickets the week prior to Rage.
Okay.
Not for the LAN, for the actual expo.
Okay.
Yeah. He's asking.
I forget that there's a LAN that's going on there.
Yeah. Oh, for in
like
case anyone's wondering as well, it's also the biggest LAN that happens in South Africa every year. Over 2,000 people LAN there with like a 5 gigabit per second line or something crazy.
2,000? Jeez, that's
Yeah.
intense.
It's like 2,400 people last year, I think.
That's crazy because it was only like 400 people at the Cape Town one. I was like, this is kind of
way smaller.
Like, oh yeah, this is cool, but like nobody really had any good computers there. Like there was like 3.
But that's what most of the tech stuff happens this time.
Okay. I didn't get to go to Rage last year just because I found out about it the day before it happened. And then I was like, I don't know how this place is. I don't really want to take my family without knowing how this place is, and I'm not paying the money.
You've had bad experiences with that so far.
Let's not go there. Let us not go there.
Anyone got tickets me one day. Well, look out for the competition. There'll most likely be something.
Okay.
Well, we can get the PSVR next month and hope someone mods it to work on
Okay, so that was
PC.
okay. I wanted to actually discuss that just a little bit about. We talked about this earlier in the week about how like PlayStation betting on their accessories has never worked out for them.
Yeah.
Like the PlayStation I think it was called
Artway.
whatever. Like their little camera that they included, or like the touch controllers, or like they sold the PlayStation 3 on having the 6-axis. Like nobody cares about PlayStation accessories. They never have, and PlayStation doesn't do well because of them ever.
They were super gimmicky. I mean, even the PlayStation 4 with it actually having the touch sensitive and like the sound and that. Sure, it's kind of cool. Like you're playing a game and your controller rings or whatever. But like the Wii had that.
Yeah.
Like none of the things were like this is game changing in any way whatsoever. So
But even the PlayStation VR, I don't.
okay, but
it's possible. It's possible.
It's the most probable, in my opinion, just due to its price. Because the PlayStation 4 was running the PSVR what do you call it, like headset or whatever. There were a lot of demos at E3 and it wasn't just a proof of concept, it was there and it was working.
Right.
And now we have the PS4 Pro, which is more than double its speed. So arguments sure about the PS4 Pro's performance in terms of like 1080p gaming, 4K, whatever, but it can definitely do VR. And I mean, like you're paying $400 for a VR ready system.
Right.
You can't do that on PC at all.
Or
okay?
even with the Xbox, because they're
Well,
not going to
yeah.
have their own integrated.
That's
VR
true.
solution.
It has support for Oculus and Vive and that kind of thing. And we already know, well, kind of know that the Scorpio is going to be way more expensive than $400. So PlayStation, $400 I think was for the headset, $400 for the actual
So $800
console, $800 full solution. We now are looking at the CV1 with its touch controllers being $800, just that.
Right.
Now, what system do you need to drive it?
Right.
So,
did you actually test out the PSVR when you were at E3?
I stood next to one of my friends that was doing it. I was so sad, like I had to literally leave. But my friend Jarrett in America was trying it out, and afterwards,
But
like
has
his
he
smile
tried out the
was
Vive?
he tried the Vive and the
Okay.
Oculus as well, because I think it was in Best Buys or something like that. They actually have them set up there.
Okay. Well, just making
pretty
sure,
easy.
like, the person who's trying PSVR
Yeah.
isn't like, this is incredible,
No, it wasn't their
comparing it
first
to a
time.
Gear VR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like he I don't think he'd used a Gear VR, but he did tell me he had used an Oculus and a Vive. I don't know if it was Best Buy or GameStop or something like that. One of the
GameStop.
one of the US
It would probably be
gaming
Best Buy.
places, yeah. So anyway, it's good.
Best Buy is not a gaming place. Best Buy is Matrix, just bigger.
Yeesh.
And they used to be industry leading, but then they just stopped caring. Anyways.
Look, either way, PSVR has a very good chance of actually being mainstream. Especially because of its price point.
Right, but it's still one of those like premium features that not everybody's gonna get. Do you think like I don't know.
Okay. Not everyone liked the Artway, but almost everyone had it.
Really?
Because nobody PlayStation 2.
Not in America.
Like everyone I remember PlayStation 2 had an Artway. Not everyone I remember PlayStation 3 had the PlayStation Move because it just was awkward.
Nobody in America. Well, say nobody. Like
no one you knew.
Most people didn't go for the PlayStation 3. Everybody went for the Xbox 360, of who I know. So the PlayStation Move wasn't even in conversation because basically nobody had a PS3. But then with the PS2, nobody had accessories.
Really?
I know not one of my friends who had the iToy.
The entire PS2 like era for me, I remember the Artway. I mean, even a trip my brother and I did to Scotland in 2004. I still remember then going to Dubai and they had these terminals set up with PS2s and the Artway.
Well, that would make sense in like a
sure because it's shopping. Yeah, but I mean, all my friends had it too. Like,
yeah.
I was used to that. Like,
no, or like even the network adapter like add-on, nobody had that.
But then, same time, I mean, I think the Kinect was successful to a certain degree. Don't get me wrong. Like there were a lot of things that it worked for, but I mean, just look at like the Xbox One launch. Oh, tethered with the Kinect has to work. All of a sudden, they like backtrack on it and they're like, you don't need that thing. Don't worry, it's terrible. We'll throw it away and we'll make it cheaper. You know, the whole device. So. Yeah. I don't think that like the VR headset's going to be one of those where it's like, oh, we're going to bundle it and then unbundle it because it was a bad idea. Like, I just think there will be a bundle. There'll be one where it's like $699 and you get both of it.
Oh.
And I think if they can just release enough good content for it, it'll be fine. Like Final Fantasy VR, what do you call it? Final Fantasy 15 in VR. Resident Evil 5 in VR. The new Sword Art Online in VR. People are going to go nuts for that.
I don't know if I'd play Final Fantasy in VR.
Well, there is already a demo, so I can't remember what his name is, but like there's this blonde character in Final Fantasy 15. He's like the sidekick to the main character,
Okay.
and he has like a gun, right? And the VR demo, you basically get to play as him and shoot stuff.
Okay.
And everyone was going crazy about it, but that's not a full game.
Yeah.
That's kind of like it's just added.
I don't know. That's interesting because like I enjoy my RPGs, but like I'm not. All my friends were Xbox people. I switched to new friends.
Yeah, everyone I knew I had in our toy too. Yeah.
Okay, it must be a South African thing.
Maybe it was cheap. It was pretty cheap, and like PlayStation 2 was cheap. PlayStation 2 games were cheap.
Right. Well, your PlayStation 2 era has lasted far longer than it did in the US. Like
It was crazy.
You could still buy new PS2 games that take a lot.
I remember seeing like rugby something whatever like 2009 on PlayStation 2, and I was just like,
I think you guys latched onto the PlayStation 2 a lot harder than we did.
It's sad though because I had the original Xbox Fat. I was the only one out of all of my friends that had it because I got it from the UK,
Okay.
and everyone else had a PS2, and they're like, "Look at how much better the PS2 is." And I'm like, "You guys are blind. Like, just look at the Xbox. This thing is amazing." You know. And that was the problem. That it was like that was kind of the only thing they had yet. That was the only thing on the market. There was no competition for the PS2.
Yeah. I mean, it was fantastic. Like, it was revolutionary at its time.
Yeah, I mean, not Dante's photo, Dante from what's the game again?
Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry, awesome game. God of War, that kind of thing. Like there was so many.
They had a lot of
games.
good exclusives.
Yeah,
Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy.
Kingdom Hearts.
Perfect.
Yeah, miss those days. But what games will the VR headset support? They better have a lineup. Look, I know at least Resident Evil 5 is now
7?
fully VR. 7. Sorry, yes. I'm not thinking. Sorry. Resident Evil 7 is fully VR. They still showcased it as like
thank you.
Yeah, that would creep me out.
No, thank you.
Okay, I saw that at E3 in the Sony press conference. They had this like crazy demo, and everyone was like, "What game is this? We're not really sure. It's something to do with what?" And then it's like Resident Evil, and we're just like, "Whoa, that's pretty crazy."
Yeah, Resident Evil 5 was released 7 years ago. You're old.
I remember playing that with my friend. You can't pick up more than one egg. That was so stupid.
One egg?
Yeah.
There's eggs?
Stupid.
How do you fight zombies with eggs?
Story for another day.
Okay.
I think that's it. If Ace Combat is supported, I'm getting it. Okay. I think simulation games, but like as in driving sims and flight sims and that kind of thing.
That makes sense.
That's cool, but like I'm not gonna go and play a RTS or even an FPS. Any game that like I'm the character directly in VR, like third person, that kind of thing. It doesn't really work that well. Like. Because it's more of an experience. You can't be competitive in VR at this stage. Like I tried playing Unreal Tournament VR, nearly vomited on the floor.
It's the lag. You can't. Well,
it's a game that's meant for like 200 FPS basically.
Right.
And like now you're limiting yourself to 75 FPS, and it's just a headache, like instantly.
Right. All right, cool. I think we're gonna end the stream there a bit earlier than the last 2 weeks, but on time.
We made it in time.
A little more or less.
Cool.
Does VR... Okay, we'll answer this last one, sorry. Does VR make you feel like you're in-game? Depends on how far you can let your brain go.
Depends on the game, depends on what type of game.
And depends who you are.
Yeah.
Because I've heard like... I've heard like percentage immersion experience that each virtual reality headset has, but like honestly for me, I think I have enough self-awareness that I never feel like I'm actually immersed in the games at this point. That's me personally.
There was this cool article I still read the one day on the 3 different types of VR. So I'll have to look for it later. Maybe we'll put it in the description if I find it. So basically, the one is where you move as the main character. Another one is where the environment moves. And then another one is like a combination of both where you can move the environment. So that's kind of like, I think if I remember correctly, the 3 main types of VR, and each of them has their own different types. So if it's the environment moving and not you, that's usually where you get sick. Roller coasters.
Yes.
If it's the environment,
anything that's seated and you move, yeah.
When there's a static environment, but you get to move within that environment, that's the most comfortable because it's life. You're walking around, you're holding a gun, that kind of thing. When you get to move the environment around you, you have control, which gives you a little bit less like nausea and uneasiness, but it's still not natural. Yeah. So an example of that is a third-person character, like a Tomb Raider game. You moving the environment Because sure, you're moving the character, but you're not in its in its perspective. So you're moving the environment. It's good enough, but it's kind of weird if you're playing. I'm trying to think of a good example of an FPS that'll work. Because Counter-Strike, you're not going to play in VR, but basically an FPS game, if they did it right, would be pretty great. Or maybe like a game like what? Smite would probably work, yeah, and even that's a MOBA though. But then
it's an FPS MOBA.
True, and then an experience where the stuff moves around you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We are going to end the stream there for my second time saying that. So thank you everybody who joined us. We really appreciate it. We will see you next week for episode 4 of B-Roll. Adios, muchachos.
Cheers.